So we're just gonna give people another 1 minute to join in. Then we will be able to start the webinar. Karibuni, everyone.
All right. Kevin, kuna baridi hivyo mpaka uko na scarf?
Huko kuna baridi sana siku ya leo. Sijui kama kuna baridi.
No, I was sun outside. I'm in a t-shirt actually, and I'm from town.
Ah.
Yeah.
You know, I realized all the weekends that I'm not working, it's very cold. The ones that I'm working, it's shining. So the weather has conspired against me.
I think, Linda, you're on mute.
So we give it another 15 seconds. I'm waiting to see the KMA CEO. She's supposed to give us an opening remark. And if we have any KMA NEC member in the house, I can see Kigondu.
Okay.
I can see Dr. Kigondu.
And have you arranged who will give our welcome message on our side?
I think you should do that, Dr.
You should.
Okay, let me quickly prepare 2-3 sentences in my mind.
Okay.
Okay.
Francis, you're our fearless leader. I've baptized you that.
A fearless. Oh.
Yes, you're a fearless leader. Comrade.
You're ninawatia nini?
No, he commanded me to do this and I had no option but to agree. So
My God.
that suits him very well.
You're our mentor, Francis. You're our mentor. So we are calling you fearless leader.
Anyway, thanks for the remarks. You know, I'm usually told, like in the trust, that when I put requests, I put the request, I put the alternatives, and I say what I want, that somebody is left with no option. Anyway, it's okay.
You should come and work with me, Francis. Yeah.
Dr. Liz, are you with us? I'm trying to look through this list and I can't see. Please put your name in the chat box that I give you rights to speak kindly, and then we can start. Dr. Liz Gitao, the list, participants list is a bit too much. If you can hear me, Liz, please chat. Okay, I think we can proceed to start. We've given time, people time to come in. Karibuni everyone for attending this webinar, which is about study opportunities and career opportunities in the United Kingdom. We have our panelists that, as you've been able to see from our posters, that is Dr. Moriti Kevin, who is a clinical fellow. Let me just get it right so that I am not. So Dr. Kevin Moriti is a clinical fellow neurosciences in the department of in Norfolk and Norwich University Hospital. We also have Dr. Gadoni Kamau, who holds an MBBS, Msc Sports and Exercise Medicine, a diploma in football medicine. She's also a junior clinical fellow in mental health and learning disabilities fellow. We also have Dr. Omar Sayari, who's a civilian sports and exercise medicine doctor working at the Royal Navy's Institute of Naval Medicine in the UK. We also have Dr. Francis Moriti, who actually helped me organize this webinar. We've been trying to get this webinar running from late last year, and I'm so happy that we're able to do it today. Despite it being a weekend, I know most people would want to rest maybe over their weekend, but we appreciate that our speakers could find some time, and also the attendees could find some time to attend this important webinar. And I think this is important because at the moment, when the kind of medical environment you're operating in as Kenyan doctors, as the Kenyan young doctors, there's a lot of issues starting with unemployment, people looking for other opportunities abroad within. So we are trying to give people that kind of information where they can see what options there are. For those who can't access information on how to, say, join the UK system, we try and have webinars like this to give members an opportunity to learn and find mentors who can also assist them if that is the career path they would want to take. So with that, I would wish to ask Dr. Kigondu Simon to give us an opening remark, and then we can proceed with the webinar. Dr. Kigondu, on behalf of Liz, kindly give us an opening remark on behalf of KMA as well.
Hello.
Hello,
Can you hear
Simon.
me?
Yeah,
Yes,
hi,
Simon, we can hear you.
Yeah. I've been put as a normal guest, but that's fine. I'm not used to being a normal guest. But we want to welcome all to this webinar in the era of limited opportunities, especially among doctors and other healthcare workers. Then it's always a good opportunity to expose people to other career paths that they may be able to take, so that we do not limit ourselves to thinking narrowly. So with that, I want to thank everyone for this webinar, and on behalf of Kenya Medical Association, I would like to welcome all so that we also hear what the opportunities are for our young healthcare professionals.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Simon. You are reminded that this webinar will be recorded and will be available on KMA's YouTube channel. So in case you miss part of the presentation, don't worry, you'll have it on the YouTube channel. And also it should be live on the Facebook page for KMA. So if you're having challenges or if your colleagues are having challenges logging in, try the KMA Facebook page. Don't forget to use the chat, the Q&A section if you have any questions for the speakers to address at the end. So we'll have Dr. Moriti come in first to talk to us about the, how to get into the UK using the PLABS route, and what are the requirements for you to, say, have a career or study in the UK. Karibu, Dr. Kevin. The floor is yours.
Linda, would you have liked Dr. Francis to give an opening remark?
Oh, sorry, I forgot about that. Dr. Francis, kindly give an opening remark for, as I had mentioned, you're the person who was our main contact in the UK, and you're also a great mentor for a lot of doctors, I believe, in the UK. So kindly give an opening remark and allow Dr. Kevin to start us off. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kemunto. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Francis Gidai Moriti, and I'm an obstetrician and gynecologist and a researcher in global women's health. On behalf of the Kenyan doctors in the UK group, I would like to welcome you to today's webinar. And when Dr. Kemunto approached me and told me that there's a group of young Kenyan doctors who would like to explore different options and to hear about the journey that we have taken in the UK, we were very glad because we, as a group, the Kenyan doctors in the UK group, we have had this in our to-do list as a way of mentorship to our younger colleagues back home. So with the hope that we can share our journey, and you can identify places where you can make your own journey much easier. And I have with me a team, like you've heard, there's Dr. Gadoni Moriti, who will be taking us first. And then there is Dr. Sayari Omar, Gadoni Kamau, and my colleagues here in the UK who very kindly agreed to facilitate this day. I will leave my email just in case any of you has direct questions, especially those who might be interested in clinical academics. That is my area, combining obstetrics, gynecology, and research. So feel very much welcomed. And I now hand over to the chair to invite Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Gidai. Kevin, you can go ahead.
All right, are you sharing my screen?
Yes, your screen is visible to, I believe, all the participants.
Okay, thank you very much. As you've been told, my name is Kevin Moriti, and a recent or a new entrant to the UK job markets. I work as a clinical fellow in Norfolk and Norwich in the neurosciences department. And I will be replicating a talk that I gave to the UK doctors here, and at the request of Dr. Francis Moriti, just to highlight the journey from Kenya to the UK and what it takes to move from Kenya to the UK. I think I'm probably best suited for this because I just recently migrated to the UK and I have this memory more fresh probably than the other doctors who moved earlier on. So the objectives that I'd like to cover in this presentation is probably to highlight the reasons or the factors that are influencing migration of doctors from Kenya to the UK, and to elaborate the process of migration. And I will probably concentrate more on the Pla Pathway. There are quite a number of pathways that doctors and other healthcare workers can use to enter the job market in the UK, but I'll concentrate on the pathway that I use myself, which is the Pla Pathway, and which is probably the most straightforward and easy pathway. And also probably discuss what we need to do to the prospective migrants. I have to say that this presentation is just based on my personal experience and information that is publicly available, and there is no affiliation to any organization. So what are the factors influencing migration of any healthcare worker or any worker from one market to the other? They are basically divided into three, or I just came across sort of a structure that shows social factors, economic factors, and academic factors. Social factors include family. You may have your family probably migrating to the UK and you want to join them. You may be married to someone who's British and you want to come over. And you may also feel that you want to change environment. I mean, the Kenyan environment is sometimes very high tempo with all the politics and sometimes the negativity, and you may want to be in a new environment and that you feel that may offer you better opportunities to grow personally and maybe career-wise. So secondly is economic factors. And this is a very debatable factor because you will be shocked to find out that Kenyan doctors, and with the advent of the unions and everything, are probably the best paid doctors in Africa, and that I can say without a shadow of doubt, Asia and Latin America. And so the push factor that is more or less the lower economic income is probably not much of a factor these days. So thirdly is academic factors. And this is probably the main factor that influences the movement of the doctors. This includes fellowships. You may want to probably have finished your postgraduate training and you want to add something more, and you feel that coming in for a year or two will add something to your credentials. You may want to do postgraduate training altogether, or you may want to come in for an MSc that is probably not healthcare related or is not clinical related. So what are the pathways that doctors can use? The most commonly used pathway is called the Pla Pathway. This is where you do 2 sets of exams set by the General Medical Council, which is the registration body for doctors in the UK. And PLAB stands for Professional Linguistic and Language Board or something like that. So, and the PLAB is divided into 2 exams. The first exam is a written exam that unfortunately at the moment is still not being offered in Kenya. And the second exam is an OSCE, which is only offered in the UK. So the pros of this system is that it is much easier in terms of the difficulty level of the exam. This is an exam that the PLAB one, any 50-year student or any fresh intern can do with probably a week or two of preparation. It takes less time and it gives you straightforward GMC registration. The cons of it is that with just a PLAB registration for your GMC, you have no additional qualifications, and that may be a difficulty in securing jobs. Although I would assure everyone that the GMC registration and a good degree, then you are assured to get a job at some point. As we said, there is still no exam center in Kenya, and the reason that there is no exam center in Kenya is because the demand is still too low. Someone informed me that some years back, the Kenyans had petitioned to get an exam center, and this was not accepted because their numbers were still very low and an extra center was given to the Nigerians. So if the demand becomes higher, then it's easier for us to probably petition and get an exam center. The second pathway I put is Mrcp pathway, and it's not just limited to Mrcp, which is the membership of Royal College of Physicians. I believe other colleges too have pathways of getting their doctors registered with the GMC, but the Mrcp seems like the most straightforward because most of the people probably looking forward to migrate are the physicians. We have an exam center available in Kenya at the Aga Khan, and they do one diet of the exam, which is the January diet. It's easier to secure a job once you have done your Mrcp, and you will have a higher entry point, mostly a middle grade entry point as a registrar. And it will also be easier to get a training number once you have done the other requirements that are required to get a training number. The cons is that it takes a longer duration. If you're doing it purely in Kenya, I don't know if they still offer the OSCE in Kenya, but it's only offered once, which is the first diet. It's normally offered 3 times in other places or 4 times. And so you have to wait each year to do one step. It has 3 steps. There's Mrcp1, which is a written exam. There's it's a multiple choice exam. There's a part 2, which is a clinical exam, but still a written and a multiple choice exam. And the third part is a PACES, which is an OSCE. So it's, of course, being a higher entry level exam, it's more difficult than the PLAB, and it's more expensive. The part 1, for example, costs you £586, which is roughly about 80 or so thousand. So there's also another pathway called the Mti Pathway. And this is a pathway that is more ideal for people who have finished their postgraduate training. That is the 4 or 5 years of medicine or surgery or obstetrics. And this gives you a 2-year visa, which is a Tier 5 visa, to come to the UK, train alongside other trainees who are mostly the registrars doing their higher training. And you could probably localize in one specialty that you like. And after that, I've noticed that most of the doctors who come for the Mti pathway go back to Kenya and are registered as having gotten a subspecialization. For example, if you come and join medical oncology specialty for 2 years, once you go back to Kenya, you will be recognized as an oncologist. The cons of it is that it's limited to 2 years, and there is the need for you to return back home. Although once you get back to Kenya, you can always easily come back if you want to. And at the same time, with the COVID situation, they have been allowing people to convert their visas when you are right here. And the last pathway that I was exploring is the Msc Pathway. This is where you come for a non-clinical degree, say MSc in dermatology, MSc, there's even MSc in internal medicine, there's MSc in sports and exercise medicine. And as you're spending your years in the university, you can do these other examinations. You can either take Mrcp or the PLABs and get registration. The cons of it is that you will need to have a way of paying for your degree, which is your MSc. And after finishing your MSc, say you've done an MSc in sports medicine, you will, which my colleagues have done, I think they will tell you that you don't get automatic registration with the GMC, and you have to do the registration exams for the GMC. So there are other pathways, which, for example, is through a sponsorship body, if you are coming through research, and many others, and all this information can be found in the GMC website. So as regards the PLAB pathway, the basic requirements for PLAB is a primary medical qualification. And this means that you have a degree from a university that is listed in the World Directory of Medical Schools. The last time I checked, there were 3 universities in Kenya which were listed in this directory. That was the University of Nairobi, there was Moi University, and there is Kenyatta University. So I'm not sure if is it Egerton University is registered, and definitely the others that are offering medical degrees are not at the moment. It doesn't mean that your degree is effective. It means that these are just newer medical schools that haven't got to this directory, and if they follow the process that is required, then eventually they get listed in this directory and your degree is recognized internationally. So as you're going through the registration process, you need this degree verified by the General Medical Council. And this is a new requirement that has come in the last 2 or 3 years, because before that, what you needed to do was when you are coming to the UK, you carry your degree certificate and other credentials and go to the General Medical Council and they look at them physically. So what they are doing is using this body called the ECFMG, which is an international body that verifies international medical qualifications. And you will need to make this application, and then the request is sent to the dean at the university, at your university, and then you will have your degree that is certified couriered to the organization, which then certifies it in your organizations and sends the certification to the General Medical Council. So basically the starting point after you've done this is to do an English language test. There used to be one English language test, which is offered in Kenya, which is the Ielts. Yeah, I think it's an international language testing system. This is pretty much not a very difficult exam. It has 4 sections. It has a reading section, it has a writing session, it has a speaking and a listening session. And any average English speaker in Kenya can easily pass this exam. I have not encountered any Kenyan with a difficulty, but I've come across other nationalities who really struggle to get through this exam. There's also a new exam called the OET, and this is basically to test you in medical English, which bears the same weight as the IELTS. It's not being offered in Kenya at the moment, but you can find it in other countries like Dubai, Nigeria, I think Egypt, and so on. Then after you've cleared your English language exam, now you can apply for your PLAB 1. The application is made through the GMC website, and the PLAB 1 exam has specific dates that are set. Well, the international centers, I think now is 4 times in a year. So this, once you set your mind that you are doing this, you have to be very keen with the dates, because this is not something that will happen automatically. You have to synchronize your dates very well and synchronize them with your working schedule. The countries closest to Kenya that are offering this are Dubai, Nigeria, Sudan, UK, and you will need to plan for your visa and travel. And the exam has a 2-year validity before you can sit, within which you can sit your second part of the exam. So it's a very tricky situation here that before, or at the time I did it, there were so many dates available for this exam, and you could always find that once you log in, you would find so many dates that you could book the exam. But at the moment, the dates have become very scarce because, of course, there's increased demand from other countries, and with the Brexit, that more foreign doctors are getting hired in the UK, then more doctors are making plans to work in the UK. So the PLAB 2 exam is done after you have passed your PLAB 1 exam. It's only done in the UK. It's offered in Manchester, the GMC Center in Manchester. You will need to make plans to get a UK visa. There's a specific visa for PLAB. It's a standard visitor visa subsection for PLAB. And the key thing with this is that you need to organize your finances very well, because one thing that you will have to show to the visa people, I think it's the High Commission or whatever, is that you have your finances in order and you can pay for your visit. So most of the people who are denied this visa are those who do not have a sound bank statement. You need at least a 4-month bank statement with a good financial flow that is showing you have a regular income. And if you don't have this, then you have to have someone who's sponsoring your visit, and they have to show what relationship they have to you, and they have to show that the money they are using to sponsor you is legally earned. So you will need a preparation academy for this exam. Well, I know a few people who have gone without, a preparation through an academy, but at least I found it useful to at least spend a week or 2 with other doctors who are preparing for this OSCE, because more or less you are learning communication skills. You have to learn how to be a bit more dramatic, because what is tested in this exam is less of the clinical knowledge and more of the, the communication skills and your demeanor as a doctor. So beyond that, after you have cleared your PLAB 2, the next step is your GMC registration, which of course starts with your EPIC, which is a EPIC ECFMG certification of your primary medical qualification, which, as I'd said earlier, this is probably the starting point so that you move on knowing that your degree is acceptable by the GMC. Then you have to show evidence of internship. And the internship is in a very specific pattern. It has to show at least 6 months of medical, I think 6 months of medical rotations and 6 months of surgical rotations. So in our Kenyan style, the surgical rotations are considered to be surgery and obstetrics, which I think we do 3 months of each, which makes 6 months. And the medical rotations are considered to be internal medicine and pediatrics. So make sure that your pattern of internship goes in line with this. And I believe for all the Kenyan doctors who are registered by the KMPDC, this is the style, this is the pattern of internship that they follow. So one of the key things that you need to remember is that employment gaps are a big issue with the GMC. And that is probably will be an issue with the new group of doctors who I think have had issues with employment. However, it does not mean that you will not be registered, but you have to explain why you are not employed at that time. And maybe it's key that during these periods of unemployment, you can retain a clinical affiliation with a certain organization. Say you can do some locums, you can do some volunteer work in a hospital. As long as you show that you have retained your clinical skills through employment, then the GMC will not have a problem with that. You have to have passed your English language exam, and I'd put this as a requirement for the GMC registration. But now, once you've passed your PLAB, the GMC does not ask for your English language test exam again. And thirdly is the police, or the fourth issue is the police clearance. You have to show that you have not been involved in any crime, and this is attained through a police clearance certificate that you apply for at the DCI in Nairobi. So you will also need to prepare for some of these things, anticipate for some of them. I've seen people who have cleared PLAB and you still have to wait for long to get your police clearance, especially these days with COVID. And beyond that, after you get your GMC registration, you are a doctor who is eligible to work in the UK, and this moves you to the next stage of job searching. So the job search is, they are the main employers in the UK. First is the publicly funded entity, which is the NHS. And the NHS is what I'd call equivalent to what the Ministry of Health used to be, is that it's a national organization, and then there are many, of course, it's very multi-layered and more bureaucratic, but most of these hospitals operate as NHS Foundation trusts, which are able to recruit doctors and employ them. But we have private employers, and this is mainly through agencies where we have a bit of a private practice, and these agencies hire doctors to work in those hospitals. It's not the most ideal route, especially if you want to continue with your training, but it's an entry point nevertheless. So the easiest way to get a job is maybe just go to the website, jobs.nhs.uk. All the jobs are found there. And one thing I can tell you is that any doctor in the UK, as much as they can promise you that their hospital is hiring or so on, no one can get you a job, because all the jobs will have to go through competitive bidding in this publicly available website. And so it's just easier for you to get advice on how you need to tailor make your CV and so on, and then go and search for these jobs, and also probably know what kind of, the names of the jobs and the job descriptions are very confusing. So you probably need someone who understands the system to tell you that probably there is one name for many jobs. You'll find probably one is a clinical fellow, the other one is an ST1, the other one is a CT2, the other one is so on, meaning the same thing. And beyond this, after you've secured a job, the first thing will be to get an interview. And to get through this interview, you have to make certain preparations in terms of how you will present yourself, in terms of understanding some of the basic things that they ask you in the interviews, including what are audits and what is clinical governance. And these are probably some things that are not available in our healthcare system in Kenya. So you have to probably liaise with someone who's already working in the UK, or there are also many other public forums like on Facebook where you can find this information. So there is a specific issue I wanted to mention about the new visa for healthcare workers, which is a big plus in terms of the journey to the UK. And this is has put all doctor jobs in the makes it very much easier for you to get to secure a job, because it doesn't use the point-based systems. Once you are in the shortage of occupation list and you are applying for a visa to come to the UK, then automatically you are considered that your job is a high priority job. You need to ask your organization, once you've secured a job, to tick for you maintenance, or otherwise you have to show that you've had 975 pounds, I think, which is around 110,000 or something, for at least a period of 3 months. And also, these days, they don't charge what is called the International Health Surcharge, which used to be a very costly fee that you had to pay each year to assess the NHS services. So this was a very defeatist way that doctors are coming and paying for the same services that they are offering. So say you have gone through all these processes and you have a job now. What are some of the things that you need to do? Because I believe probably some of the people in the audience are at different stages of movement to the UK. Those who may have finished their Pla 2 and already have secured jobs, ensure that you are very keen with settling your affairs at home in terms of disposing your property, in terms of leaving your dependents in the positions that you'd like to have them, or having them come with you through dependent visas. You have to make sure that your financial commitments are in order, because KERA will still be on your neck, and other organizations, including HELB, will not let you go just because you're in a foreign country. Then you have to make sure that you've now probably booked your flights, and you need to know the way you want to get yourself to the UK. You need to plan in terms of accommodation, and take note of things like the quarantine and how you want to arrive in the UK. So I think the most important issue is usually the money matters. How much does this all cost? So the English language exam at the moment costs around 25,000, and I've just put these as rough figures, so it is plus or minus. Getting your degree certified by EPIC costs you another 25,000. The Pla 1 exam, and these I've given the minimum cost. The exam itself costs around 230 pounds, which comes to say 40,000 or so. And then you need probably to travel. And I use these cost estimates of someone who is doing their Pla 1 in Dubai and traveling the day before the exam and coming back after the exam, because I noticed that is what some doctors do. If you have a bit more money and you've saved, you can take a trip to the desert and all, and the minimum cost is 100,000. Pla 2 exam, you will need to come to the UK. So on a minimum, you need to have 300,000. You also need to have a good bank statement, which probably needs to have 3 times the amount of what you are going to spend, so that you don't have a problem with the visa. So this can be your own money, or can be someone who's sponsoring you, who shows their relationship to you. And finally, there is a Gmc registration, which costs you around 75,000 shillings. And then there is the cost of moving to the UK, which includes a visa, flight, and initial accommodation. And if you are moving to an NHS job, most of the times you'll have to take care of these things for yourself. Those who are working with agencies, sometimes the agencies help them with these costs, and they recoup them from your earnings once you're in the UK. So I put an average cost of 1 million shillings. Remember, this is less than what a doctor earns throughout his internship. So it's not out of range for most of the people. However, you can plan your finances in a way that, including if you feel that you want to put yourself in that position where you can borrow the money and probably plan to repay it later. So as you plan to move, get the right information, keep a job in Kenya. And I know this is probably doesn't go down well with the doctors who are not employed, but at least try to show that you have a clinical affiliation. You can work in a clinic, you can work in a small facility. Just don't have a huge gap of more than 6 months without showing what you've been doing clinically, because you may be asked to work again for another 6 months to bring your skills up to task before the GMC registers you. have a good bank statement for at least 4 months and sponsorship. And well at it, do postgraduate degrees. Those who are in postgraduate, especially at the university, it's always good to finish. I know there are others who have taken very fancy routes, like coming for a year to the UK and going back and continuing with their degrees, which is also a good thing. But as always, I'd advise anybody who is in their postgraduate studies to complete their postgraduate studies, because this will be a big point in terms of when they come to the UK, in terms of their entry point, and in terms of also getting training positions and training numbers. Also, you can do diplomas. I know there are hospitals like Aga Khan which offer diploma in emergency medicine, and this will also add in terms of your entry point. You may enter at a higher entry point for having this, and do fellowships, attend seminars, do publish and all those kind of other things. This will help a lot in boosting your CV. Do a proper job search. Don't just land for any job because you're very desperate. Make sure that the job description fits you, and probably, if possible, do a search of the organization that is employing you to ensure that it's a friendly organization that knows how to take care of international medical graduates. So the key thing I always say is don't be desperate. Of course, you can be desperate if you've been jobless for some time and you are looking for a job in haste. So always try to, balance that so that you don't land through a very unscrupulous organization, say an agency, that will make your life more miserable in a foreign land as opposed to how it was where you are. So I would say that there are resources that are available online. There is one gentleman who is two Pakistani doctors who've done very good resources. One is called Nasir's Journey. This is a blog, and another one is called Omar's Guidelines. At some point, I was thinking of coming up with one. I'm still trying to do this so that once we have time, we can be able to also assist the Kenyan doctors in a very generic way, meaning that some of the experiences these doctors share are not reflected in the Kenyan journey of moving to the UK. Very key Facebook groups. One is called IMG UK, and the other one is called PLAB. And these groups more or less have resources that all the resources that you will need. So ensure that your money matters are right, and ensure that once you've secured a job, it's the right job, and you have a career path or a path charted out before you get here. And be it a typical or an atypical path, just have your career path in mind and don't allow yourself to be distracted by anybody, because there are so many people who will put so many things in your head, and by the time you find yourself, then you are really lost in your career pathway. So I think that makes it for my presentation. I will probably leave it at that and catch up at the question and answer forum, if that's okay, Dr. Kemunto.
That's okay, Daktari, and I can even see you've answered a lot of some of the questions in our Q&A section. So, but we will highlight them at the end. Thank you so much for an extensive presentation also. I'm also learning quite a bit. It's an interesting journey, and I would have to highlight that it's quite pricey. I hope the rewards at the end are even better. And I hope one of the speakers will highlight the experience now after you've gotten in. Is it a worthwhile investment or not? Our next speaker is Dr. Gadoni Kamau. A simple Google search of her sent me to the FIFA Medical Network website because she has an MSc in Sports and Exercise Medicine and is licensed to, I guess, practice with the FIFA. So maybe she can also highlight if she has worked with any stars in the sports world. Thank you so much. Welcome, Dr. Gadoni. The floor is yours. You can proceed.
Thank you so much for the kind words. Moriti, must you stop sharing your screen?
Am I able to do that? I should, yeah. Stop sharing. Done.
Thank you. So let me just share my screen first. Okay. Thanks so much, Linda, for the kind words. My name is Gadoni Kamau. I'll speak a little about my experiences of getting to the UK. I came here through the Pla Pathway. I came in 2015. I did my medical school in China, and I think some of my classmates are on the are attending today. I did my PLAB and I ended up working for a year in acute medicine. And when I came, I was very keen on sports. It was always something that I was very interested in. So I saved up, worked for a year, saved up, and self-funded myself for a master's in sports and exercise medicine. It was a 2-year degree. And unfortunately, I worked in women's sports, women's football. So I don't think that anyone knows any of the ladies I met. And I also, while I was doing that, I got a diploma in football medicine, and I worked as a team doctor with Cardiff ladies. And as it happens here in the UK, you start on one path and then you fall into another one. So currently I'm working in psychiatry. I've been working here for about 18 months, and I'm trying to find my way of merging my two passions, which is sports and mental health, and working in sports psychiatry. So as Moriti talked about coming into the UK, you can come in through the Pla Pathway. So what I'm going to talk about is, once you're in, what are your options? So I'm going to talk about the training pathway. Other people in America, it's called the residency programs, and how to get in. The visa rules have changed, so it's made it very accessible to everybody, whereas before it was a bit difficult. But now, if you're in the system, it's equal for everybody. You can get in once you know exactly how to do it. So in order to practice in the UK, you need to have registration with the GMC. And the GMC is basically the public body that maintains the register of medical professionals in the UK. And majority of doctors who work for the NHS, who work in the UK, work in the NHS, because it's quite one of the biggest employers in Europe. The GMC's responsibilities are to protect, promote, and maintain the health and safety of the public, controls the entry to the medical register. It deals with licensing and revalidation. So every year we are expected to do an appraisal, and every 5 years you're to revalidate. So you need to keep proving that you're learning and you're up to date. And it's also responsible for suspending and removing members off the register. And it also sets standards for medical schools in the UK. So I know people talk about the NHS. So what is the NHS? So it's a publicly funded healthcare system, and it's funded through general taxation. So it was set up in 1948, and it has 3 core principles. So which is, it should meet the needs of everyone. It's free at the point of delivery, and it's based on clinical need and not the ability to pay. So in essence, healthcare is free here. So we don't have to worry about insurers and all those things. You treat the patient that is in front of you with the resources that you have.
I'm okay. I've left the session. I'm muted.
So what happens when you come here, you finish your PLAB, what next? So interesting points to note that to become a consultant in the UK, it does not involve degrees like a master's or an MD. These are good to have to boost your CV into getting into a training program, but that doesn't necessarily confer you specialism or to become a consultant. So specialist training in the UK is not a degree, and universities don't really play a role in training programs. So to become a consultant, you need to be awarded what is called a CCT. So that is Certificate of Completion of Training. All training programs take place within the NHS, and it's a national recruitment process, and it's all done online. And training programs, the syllabus is set through the Royal Colleges. So really talked about, doing your Mrcp. So that is a Royal College. So it's the Royal College of Physicians, the Royal College of GPs, the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynecology. They set the syllabus. And currently there are no training programs that happen in private hospitals or in universities. So with regards to once you're in a training program, you don't pay. There's no costs related to training. You train while working, and all training jobs at all stages are paid. So depending on your stage, there's a set pay. Doesn't matter where in the UK you work, the pay is usually very standard.
Yeah, on the recliner.
And there are professional fees that you have to pay, which is you have to pay your GMC every year. You're encouraged to get medical indemnity, so MDU, MDDS, MPS, MDU, such things. And you also, once you are admitted into the Royal Colleges, you have to pay your membership fees. So just a brief overview of the system in the UK and how it works. So after you finish your medical school, you start here. So you do 2 years of foundation training. So that's foundation year 1 and foundation year 2. So normally here in the UK, doctors who are foundation year 1 are working with a provisional license. And then when you get to foundation year 2 is when you're granted full GMC registration. So most of us who come into the UK, we are granted a license to start at this point at working. So we are starting at foundation year 2 level. Then what usually happens when they finish their foundation years, you're granted completion of your foundation competencies, and you can apply for training, which takes 3 to 9 years generally. And then you can either, after 3 years, if you had applied for GP, which is family medicine, you can become a GP. You're given a CCT in GP, or you can get CCT and join the specialist register and become a consultant. So in the UK, we have 2 different types of training programs. So you have uncoupled programs, which you enter at this point, which would be us. You enter at the specialty recruitment point, and you work for 3 years as a core trainee. So you CT1, CT2, and CT3. So when you apply for jobs, a lot of the time you'll see these CT. That just means you're working, you're not in training, but you're working at the level of someone in this level. Then once you finish your 3 years of core training, you're expected to do some more exams and reapply for what is higher specialty training, which will run from ST3 to ST9. And once you complete that, you are awarded a CCT and you become a consultant. So uncoupled programs are all branches of internal medicine, most surgical specialties, anesthetics, emergency medicine, and psychiatry. One thing to note, if you are coming to do a few of the surgical specialties, you have to be very careful because they have a time limit. So they require that you don't have more than 18 months of experience, postgraduate experience in surgery. If you want to enter at this point, you would have to, if you have more than that, you would have to try and enter at this point, which is quite a difficult point of entry. So my talk today is, I'm going to talk about how to get through this specialty recruitment stage. So the other type of training that we have, you have the run through. So once you finish the foundation trainings, you apply for specialty recruitment and you get in, and it's a run through program. So you don't have to do anything, you don't have to reapply again. So you do your membership exams, and once you finish that, after 8 years or 7 years, however long the program is, you do your CCT and you become a consultant. So the run-through programs are pediatrics, obs and gyn, ophthalmology, radiology, cardiothoracic surgery, and neurosurgery. So once you've come, you've got your GMC registration, you've got a little experience under your belt. So what next? So as you've seen, to apply for specialty training, you need to have at least 2 years of clinical experience. So they're expecting you to be at least foundation year 2 level. For most of us who come into this country, we haven't done foundation training, but we have done internships and we do have more than 2 years experience. So we can enter training through what is called the CREST, you have to use the certificate of readiness to enter specialty training. For UK doctors, they are signed off at the end of foundation years, and they have a certificate they get, so that's they use to apply. We use this CREST form to apply to get into training. So just quickly, the CREST form is an alternative to foundation competencies and is used for us in international medical graduates. And it's to ensure a standardization and inclusion of us to apply into specialist training. So I think it's a very fair way to grade whether we are competent enough or we meet the standards that they require for us to enter training. This form can be downloaded online. I'll leave a link at the end of my talk. You can go and have a look at it. So in order for you need these forms to be signed. So it needs to be signed by a consultant. And this consultant needs to be registered with a medical regulatory board. So they don't have to be GMC registered. They can be any consultant. But as of last year, or this training round, whoever is signing off you need to provide proof of their registration on a medical regulatory board. And you need to have worked with them for 3 continuous months in the last 3.5 years. Because there has been due to COVID, there's been a trend that a lot of people are applying. They get their Pla registration and apply straight to get into training. So you can do that, but I would advise that perhaps come in and learn the system first before making a decision on which training program to get into. So the CREST form basically is asking on four domains. So professional behavior and trust. So like just behavior, professionalism, patient-centered care, self-directed learning, communications. There's a tick box that the consultant needs to sign that they have witnessed that you've done it. The second section is about communication, teamwork, and leadership. So how you deal with challenging circumstances, how you interact with your colleagues, how you document, how you've handled complaints. Again, it's just a tick box thing. You don't really have to provide any proof. It's just they take the word of your consultant or whoever is signing your form. The third part is about clinical care and recognition of acute illness. So, and how you diagnose, how you discharge patients, how you, if you've done any ALS, previously ALS was, it was mandatory for you to have done ALS when you apply, but because of COVID, the rules have changed. So right now the rules are, your consultant just needs to say that they believe that you're able to do the resuscitations and things like that. But to enter most training programs, you will have to have completed the ALS. Safety and quality. So this is, do you know how to use technology? How are your computer skills? Quality improvement, personal competence. So are you able to work within your own limits, and patient safety again? And how do you follow, here in the UK, we have to follow trust guidelines and NICE guidelines. So are you able to follow that? So it's, as I said, it's a tick box thing. It sounds more complicated than it is, and a lot of people get very confused, but you download the forms, you get it signed off, and in most trusts, you can get it signed off after working for about 6 months. So as I said before, you enter after signing the CREST form or you've done your foundation years. There's an online portal, it's called Oriel. So it's a national recruitment process. You go and log in and set up an account there. So some specialties require you to do a MSRA. So that's a multi-specialty recruitment assessment. Specialties like general practice, psychiatry, radiology, obs and gynae, neurosurgery, they require you to do this exam. So most surgical and medical specialties have their own process of application, and it's all done through this Oriel online portal. And you will also be required to do an interview. Currently, because of COVID, the rules have changed a bit. So some specialties are not conducting interviews. They're only basing your score on this this MSRA. So as I said before, medicine and surgery, you can apply. There's a platform on the website which you fill in set domains that they've put forward, and you get points for all the proof that you can give. So they ask you about any prizes and awards, any postgraduate education. So this is where having a master's or an MD or any postgraduate qualifications comes in and gives you points. Any presentations, any publications, any teaching, any quality improvement and leadership. And each domain carries points. So the higher you score, the more chances you are of getting a training number. And you also interview, and you have what is called a portfolio station, which I will explain. So the MSRA format is very simple. It's a situational judgment test. So this just tests your professional integrity, how you cope with pressure, empathy, and sensitivity. Most foreign doctors find this exam very difficult because it's not really a clinical exam. It just gives you scenarios, and it tells you what is the best answer. There's no right answer, there's no wrong answer. It's just a situational judgment test. So it's, for those of us who have come into the system, it's a very challenging exam. The second part of the paper is a clinical solving paper. So you have 97 questions in 75 minutes, and they're all clinical scenarios, and it tests all parts of medicine. So you'll have questions from dermatology, surgery, pediatrics, psychiatry, obstetrics, and gynecology. It tests all those specialties, and you have 75 minutes to do it. This paper is done online. So with COVID right now, people have been also either doing it from home, or there's a center that you can go and do it. There are centers all over the UK. As I mentioned before, some specialties, once you finish the MSRA, you get the score that you need to move on. You now have to do 2 to 4 OSCE type scenarios, and one of those scenarios will be what they call a portfolio station. So this is just them testing your interest in your chosen specialty. So this is where you sell yourself, and you discuss your portfolio. Just in general, a portfolio is just a document that you keep to provide evidence of your professional and personal skills, your knowledge and competencies, so like covered in a CV, and it tracks your professional development and career planning. And it's also your way to show interest in the chosen specialty. So I know that was very fast, but we only had limited time. So my final thoughts are, it's very possible to get here and to come into training. Plan and prepare. Once you finish your PLAB and GMC and get into the system, take your time, settle in. It's a different place, a different environment, it's a different healthcare system with different requirements of you. Take your time and settle in, don't rush anything. And entry into training is very standardized, and it's attainable to anyone as long as you know how the system works. So here are some useful websites that you can look up. The Savvy IMG is a really good website by a Pakistani doctor again, who discusses all these different pathways and all that. So thank you very much for listening, and I can answer any of your questions in the end.
All right, thank you, Dr. Gadoni. That was a really extensive presentation. And again, you have answered some of the questions in the chat box or Q&A. Someone had asked about differentiating Foundation 1 and 2, and I think that has been answered very well. We can now move, also before we move on to the next presenter, I would like to recognize the presence of Chibanzi Mwachonda, who's our acting Sec Gen for KMPDU. Karibu sana daktari. and also recognize some few. Dr. Liz also joined us at the webinar, Karibu Daktari, and a few young doctors who've been active in the YDN. That is Dr. Marie Claire and Dr. Abdi. Karibuni so much. Our next presenter is Dr. Omar Sayari. He's a civilian sports and exercise medicine doctor at the Royal Navy's Institute of Naval Medicine, as I had earlier indicated. He has an interest in fitness training, thermal injuries, survival medicine, and research in the UK Armed Forces Center of Excellence for Science and Medicine. He also has a professional interest in exercise physiology, nutrition, human extreme performance, and survival. And he's going to give us a talk on the alternative medical careers and good medical practice in the UK. Karibu sana daktari, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Linda. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. So thanks for that very kind introduction. So just like Gadoni, I also did sports and exercise medicine as a master's degree. But for me, generally, the reason for speaking here today is to kind of give a flavor of the different things that you can do as a doctor in the UK. Giving my own kind of personal journey, which might be different from so many other people, but equally or potentially interesting. This is important. I work for the Royal Navy, but the statements that I give today and my views are personal and should not be viewed as an official position from my employers. So this is where I'm based, the Institute of Naval Medicine. It's essentially the Royal Navy's medical school. So they train medical doctors, nurses, and everybody involved in a medical practice within the Navy. So this is the INM. So in terms of looking at the different pathways, so one of the pathways that I'm following at the moment is sports and exercise medicine, but specifically working for the UK Armed Forces. I'm employed by the Navy, but my services cut across all the services within the Armed Forces. So my patients are Navy officers, Army, Air Force, and also Marines. The area that I work in is the Environmental Medicine and Sciences Department. And in there is survival and thermal medicine is where I sit. And at the moment, I lead that unit for the time being, essentially doing a lot of physiology work, fitness work for the Royal Navy, and generally for the Armed Forces, looking specifically at thermal injuries. So these are all domains within sports and exercise medicine. And the other thing that I also do for the Navy is to do underwater medicine assessments. So these would typically be Armed Forces divers that I have a responsibility to make sure that they're fit enough to be divers, because the physiological demand for underwater medicine is different. So I work as a civilian, but alongside me are uniformed officers of equivalent expertise, some higher, some lower. But essentially, I work as a civil servant within the armed forces, cutting across the defense medical service. I also am involved in a bit of training and teaching, so teaching medical doctors within the Navy, advanced life support and pre-hospital care sometimes. So that's one option. The other option is to join the armed forces as a medic. So you're a soldier, but a soldier medic. And this is one example of the kind of general requirements or specifications for joining the armed forces. So the Royal Air Force, for example, employs doctors at any level. So from junior level up to consultant level. For somebody in Kenya, you would have to be in the UK for at least 6 years legally for you to be able to apply to become a doctor within the armed forces as a uniformed doctor, as opposed to like me, a civilian. The dynamics are slightly different. It's quite an interesting job being in the armed forces as a doctor, because you gain the ranks. So obviously, depending on your rank, you get people saluting you, or you get to give commands and orders, and it is fascinating to some. It might not be the thing for many people, but it's fascinating. So one of the other aspects of my job, so I said I'm going to kind of give a flavor of what I do. So one of the other kind of things that I do within my job role is to do occupational assessments. So fitness for work, you know, how fit should a soldier be to work within the armed forces space. So in some cases, they are brought to me to determine some of these issues through physiological testing and cardiovascular testing. So I operate alongside my medical office. There's a physiology lab that I can utilize to provide guidance to the armed forces. So aviation medicine is another area that's very interesting, or aerospace medicine. And this is an area that, although I'm not doing now, but it's an area that I will be delving into in the next kind of probably 1 or 2 years. And essentially, it's looking at the, or rather testing and making sure that people who fly, or jobs are mainly flying, are fit for the job that they are doing. So this is quite interesting. It's something that you can do as an MSc. It's very, very expensive to do, and luckily for me, I can easily do this through my affiliation with the armed forces. I know an old friend in medical school in Kenya who has done this. He's in Kenya at the moment. I'm not sure if he's still practicing this, but I know that you can do this as an MSc. Right. So that was what I do now. So going back, so I've taken a completely different path. So my previous job was a disability medicine analyst. So essentially, my job role was to look at people with different disabilities and to give feedback to the government into how much support they require for them to lead a normal life. And this includes, you know, anything from physical disability to mental health disability. And also part of my job was to look at the effects of industrial injuries on the capability of different people to work, and also to determine how much compensation they should be receiving from the government. And I put this here, and it's quite interesting that Dr. Chibanzi is here, because I know that this is something that he has followed up in Kenya. So probably many are not aware, but Kenya has the WIBA, it's the Work Injury Benefits something, but that's in line with what I used to do in my previous job. So this is an option for any doctor. As long as you have your GMC license, you can apply for this job. They will train you and you will get to do it. This is in the private sector, so this has got nothing to do with the NHS as earlier described. So this is in the private sector, which means that you get paid a bit more than your NHS compatriots. So prior to that, I used to do different jobs here and there, because I think for many people who've known me in the past, I've always been the kind of non-conventional person. So prior to that, I did palliative medicine and end-of-life care as a job. So you wake up in the morning and walk into a hospice, and that's your day job. It is rewarding to some people, but it might be very difficult to others, because obviously not everybody can deal with kind of end-of-life care. The most interesting thing about this job was the fact that you see the other spectrum, or the other end of ailments or diseases where people are coming to the end of their lives, and how that relates to you as a doctor becoming the person of contact between family, the patient, and the rest of medical care. For example, when you decide that you're going to stop all medication for this particular patient, it's a discussion that you will have to have with everyone. So you can either work in a hospice, or you can be sent to visit these people at home, or you can work as a community-based hospice kind of end-of-life care doctor. So very interesting, but obviously it's not everybody's cup of tea. So prior to this job, I did different locum-based jobs. And in one job, very interestingly, I used to wake up in the morning and walk straight into theatre, get changed into scrubs, and just assist the whole day. So whichever surgeon who had a case and they don't have an assistant, they will just call you in, please come and assist me. So anything from orthopedics, breast surgery, general surgery. So it used to get called. So you have a bleep and they will tell you, please go to theatre number so and so and assist the surgeon there. Laparoscopic, all of that. But the problem with this is that it can be very monotonous depending on your interests. But for me, I found it really interesting. I think coming into this job was very nice for me because I'd been unemployed for a while, and just entering that theater and smelling the smell of diathermy. It might mean nothing to many people, but for me, the smell of diathermy meant that, you know what, now I feel like I'm a doctor again. So this is another pathway that people can take, doing different locums, but that obviously will be subject to your immigration status, as alluded to by the other speakers. Expedition medicine and pre-hospital care is also another pathway to follow. It's nice. It's very, very nice because it can land you anywhere. You know, 1 minute you could be in the street, you know, there's been a bomb blast or something like that. And the next minute you could be in the mountains rescuing somebody who's been drowned by an avalanche and things like that. So very, very nice. And you know, it's for people who really like the kind of adrenaline rush in medicine and that kind of thing. So that's another option as an alternative career. Public health, obviously the employer is Public Health England. You can apply for these jobs directly on their website. I know a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine did ask me about jobs in public health. You can apply for these. You also need a GMC license. So everything that the previous two speakers have said remains true, even for public health jobs. Health insurance, just like in Kenya, I think, where you look at people who, for example, have had injuries and to determine whether you know, they should be awarded insurance, or liaising with the insurance companies and things like that, doing assessments on behalf of insurance companies is also a job option that is available and available to everyone. You just apply for it. Well-paying job, I should say, but you know, you obviously have to balance that against your initial interest in coming to the UK. Medical education and writing. Gidai, who's left, Francis, who's left the session today, is training really to become a medical educator. So, you know, starting your pathway to becoming a professor within medicine or a teacher within medicine is also a pathway that you can take. Many of these NHS jobs that people have spoken about, for example, GP, they have an extra arm to become an academic trainee. So you're training to become a specialist in that specialty, for example, gynecologist or surgeon, but on the side, you learn to become an educator. Which kind of opens up pathways for academia. Medical writing is a separate entity altogether. It just means that you become a full-time writer within journals or magazines or things like that is also an option. But this is quite tricky because I did try to apply to this, and one of the requirements was that you had to be a native English speaker, which I think decided I was probably not. The other options are within the justice system. So you can be a doctor, forensic medicine doctor, you do an MSc, get trained, and you become a forensic medical expert. You can be a doctor within the prison services, seeing obviously people within the prison system, or a doctor within the police service. So all of these are options for doctors outside the traditional kind of NHS type of work. Finally, just a couple of slides to go. As the Kenyan Doctors UK Association, we are kind of looking at the importance of nurturing or ensuring that people understand some of the not glaring differences, but some of the differences between practicing in the UK and practicing in Kenya. One of the things that the GMC will offer you when you start doing the PLAB process, or at the end of the PLAB process, is the good medical practice document. This is a document that you have to read and ensure that you fully understood, because you will be judged against this. If you do something wrong, they will go back and look at the good medical practice. What did you do and what did you do wrong? And I'll just describe a few things within the good medical practice. It's got 4 different domains. So knowledge, skills, and performance. So at the moment, many of you obviously in medical school or have qualified, you have the knowledge, that's fine. You have the skills, that's fine. But what about your performance? What is expected of you to perform as a doctor within that public space? For example, things like demonstrating your learning process. How have you shown that you are keen on learning, keen on acquiring knowledge, and how can you demonstrate that you've learned? Or if you've made a mistake, how honest are you in the mistakes that you've done? Procedural things, for example, documenting. The good old days, you remember, where doctors' handwriting used to be illegible, you can't read it. That's kind of gone. You're expected to write in the patient's file or the patient's notes clear instructions, sign your name and date it very, very clearly. And if you don't do that, you will be held against it, because it's one of the areas that you are judged against. So knowledge, skills, and performance, domain number 1. Number 2, very, very important. The GMC is designed to take care of patients. So patient safety is number 1 and key. How are you as a doctor safe around patients? And number 2, how much do you contribute towards the quality of patient care? So many of you, once you come here, you will be asked to do things like audits. So looking at your own practice. So for example, if you do something in one way, document it, look for changes, and then document it again. How have you contributed in the unit that you work in towards changes and performance and quality delivery of service to the NHS for many of you who will be working in the NHS. But in all other jobs, this is also key, because if a patient goes to GMC and complains and says that I am faulting the way this doctor did this particular thing, the onus will then be upon you as the doctor to provide evidence that you did the right thing. And that becomes very, very difficult, especially for us people who've trained abroad, because it's not inculcated within ourselves to be more vigilant of these things. You acquire a lot of knowledge, you're very good at what you do, but these softer kind of skills will catch so many people out sometimes. So communication and partnership, how well do you communicate with your patients, with your colleagues, with other people? Because Gadoni talked about your revalidation process. And one of the things that has to happen with revalidation is that you have to demonstrate what patients think about you, what your colleagues think about you. So you have to give feedback forms from patient feedback and comments that are collected in your clinical area, and submit that to the GMC. They will have a look at what patients are saying about you, what your colleagues are saying about you, and it's colleagues in different areas. So cleaners, people, porters who push patients up and down, and that's really, really important, because without that, you will not necessarily be allowed to continue without remedial intervention. Now, lastly, maintaining trust. So maintaining trust between you and your patients, patient confidentiality, seeking consent. I remember back in the day in medical school where, and I'm sorry to say this if it offends anyone, a consultant will come in and just quickly just draw the bed sheet across the patient, leaving them exposed just because they want to teach their students. Things like that do not happen and cannot happen. And if it does happen, then be sure that you will have repercussions on that. So things like how you speak to people. Are you honest about what you're talking about? how well do you safeguard the information that the patients have entrusted in you? Are you this kind of person? There were some doctors who were called to the GMC because of just discussing a patient in the canteen. So this canteen is shared between patients and visitors and members of staff. So these two doctors talking, this patient had this and that and that. A relative went and complained, and these guys had to be called by the GMC. The last thing is how you safeguard documentation. So patient's information. You can't just walk out with a patient list in your pocket. If you drop that and it's got your name on it, then you're bound to be in trouble. I think with that, I've come to the end, and that's just a slide explaining the good medical practice, because I think this will be important to everyone that's applying to come to the UK. When you go for an interview or when you're being interviewed, you have to demonstrate these areas of your performance and of your skills. The person who will get the job is the person that demonstrates most of the things that appear on this list, not the one that got, I don't know, distinction in medical school. So the softer skills is what really will make the difference. Thank you very much. Linda, back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Omar. I think this has been a really extensive, presentation covering literally everything that most people would want to know about coming to the UK. Appreciations to all the speakers. All the speakers have tried to answer 95% of the questions or 99% of the questions in the chat box, but there are a few that maybe we would want to highlight. For instance, people asking about sponsorship, scholarships. I don't know if Dr. Moriti can take that up or anyone who's comfortable. Are there scholarships for, say, MSCs, postgraduate studies and all that, or other sources of funding for people to pursue education in the UK? Thank you. Moriti, you're muted. Okay, let me.
All right. So, I mean, I will say two things, and probably I am not very aware of the profile of the audience that we have, because their needs differ very greatly. If it's someone who's fresh off university or fresh off internship, and someone who's middle grade, who's doing their postgraduate training, and someone who's finished their postgraduate trainings. I've seen some questions, people asking who have already done their collegiate exams. So these are a very different profile of people. I had tailored my talk to more or less junior doctors who are probably 1 or 2 years into their practice in Kenya and who are preparing to do their PLAB exams. So I will be limited to probably answering the questions that cover that kind of demographic, but I will try and answer that question and say this. The basic requirement of working in the UK is having a degree in Kenya and getting registered by the GMC. Yep. So what we were trying to expound is, what are these routes of getting registered by the GMC? There are 4 or 5. One is doing an entry exam, which is the PLAB exam. The second one is doing a college exam, which is done by these royal colleges. Royal colleges are like the COSESCA we have in Kenya and so on. So if you do their membership exams, that can be a pathway of registration. Another pathway of registration is called the MTI. This is where, after you finished your postgraduate training, you apply for a limited training. This is called Medical Training Initiative, and is carried out by the royal colleges to help augment or add knowledge to international graduates, while at the same time they provide labor to the UK. All right, because it's a labor deficit market. It means the UK is always looking for doctors. Okay, so as someone who has finished their postgraduate, doesn't necessarily have to have done college exams, doesn't necessarily have to have done PLAB, can come through the MTI pathway. And one of the institutions in Kenya that has been really keen on this, I think, is the Aga Khan University and University of Nairobi. So that is the third pathway. Another pathway is through, higher, called I think you have to be sponsored by an organization. This is someone, for example, who is coming in as a research, into research and those kind of things that will need him to work in the GMC. I think Dr. Francis will have been very key in elaborating this. You can still get your GMC registration without having done PLAB, without having done college exams, and without going through the Mti pathway. All right. So the basic thing is have a degree and get registered. But that will greatly define in terms of the job you get. So the basic job that you will get with just a degree from Kenya is a junior level job, which is post FY2 job. And post FY2 job, these are non-training jobs. Non-training jobs means that the person is not headed towards being a registrar and being a consultant, but is offering a service to that hospital. So these are called, in other terms, they are called service grade jobs. It's like an MO, when you MO, all right? And then you may be a senior MO who is probably a non-training registrar. At the same time, you'll still have to go back and be a normal registrar and get training to become a consultant. So all these are overglorified titles. You find someone is employed as a junior clinical fellow, another one is employed as a clinical fellow, another one is employed as a senior clinical fellow. And I didn't want to touch on my experience, but I'd say that when I was applying for my job, I asked for a job and they said, no, you have worked for quite a number of years. Let's give you this one, you know? So they also consider those kind of things, you know? So also if you have experience, don't apply for a very junior job. They will think you're overqualified for that job, you know? So believe in yourself, look at your experience and go for it. So the thing I had seen in the chart that I wanted to touch on is the pay scale. And I told you from the start, and this is, if someone has information to challenge this, they can. Kenyan doctors are the highest paid doctors in Africa. And Chibanzi Mwachonda, if he's in the group, should hear that. They are the highest paid doctors in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. Kenyan doctors in their middle grade who are employed by government are paid higher than doctors in Brazil, in India, in Pakistan, in some parts of China, and of course, more than doctors in South Africa, way more than doctors in Egypt, Tunisia, Libya, and all those countries. So it becomes now a very debatable issue. Will you leave the comforts of a Kenyan job to come to the UK? Because adjusted for the cost of living, it's not that it's a very lucrative market to start with. As time goes by, probably you catch up and you do other things. But to start with, there is a culture shock of realizing that the pounds are not as much as you thought they would be. The basic salary that you will get at the very starting level, I think as an FY2, is 2,400 pounds, which comes to around 348,000 shillings. And even an MO employed only by the government, and you know the kind of work we do in government, is earning, say, 300,000 shillings. Then definitely if you adjust that the amount of money you are paying for your 3-bedroom house in Nairobi will only get you a small room in the UK shared by other 4 people or 5 people in the house shared by 4 or 5 people. Then the quality of life versus what you are earning, you know. So it's purely not a monetary issue. But of course, being a stable job market, being a country that has good governance, that is responsible, that has a real existing democracy, you know, despite all these other challenges that they have, then you may find that some of the things that you will enjoy, you know, in Kenya, you still have to drive through the same potholed roads. You know, you still have to use the same bad social amenities. Here, you will take a nice bus ride. So you have to balance these things. So when someone asks me about money, it's a very debatable issue. And this can go all the way up. I've said the base salary will start at 2,400. You may have your entry level at 3,000 pounds, others at 3,500. And those are for registrars and non-consultants. Consultants go all the way up depending on their specialty. You'll find someone earning 6,000 pounds a month or 5,000 or 7,000 or others even 10,000 pounds a month. So Kenyan doctors are paid well, to say, and life in Kenya is much easier. I mean, we used to work in the morning hours, in the afternoon is just siesta and talk, and you can leave when you want, you can come back when you want, as opposed to the UK, when you have to account for the number of hours you're working. Most of the times, if you're employed a full-time job, you have to have 10 programmed activities in a week, which means morning and afternoon. So without belaboring on that topic, I think that is the much I can say about it.
Can I just add something there? In terms of, I think the specific question was, with regard to sponsorship for master's education. these things are there. I remember when I was doing my master's, my friend, his name is John Kitui. John Kitui, and I'm sorry to mention him in a public forum, he applied for MPH, so Masters in Public Health, and he got an offer. And he then applied for the Commonwealth Scholarship. He got a 50% scholarship to pay for 50% of his tuition. But then he rejected that and waited another year, deferred for 1 year, and then eventually got 100% scholarship plus maintenance while in the UK. So his entire time in the UK, he paid nothing and he got paid on top of it. So when you're applying for anything in the UK in terms of education, master's degree especially, make sure that you go onto the university's website, look at the scholarship pathways and apply for them. Coming from a Commonwealth country is an advantage. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Omar and Dr. Kevin, for answering or reiterating the questions we had in the chat box. We are 6 minutes past the time we're supposed to finish. I hope we can all stay for another maybe 10 minutes to close up. Dr. Gadoni, maybe you can have a go at, we've seen 2 questions about racism, and Dr. Francis, before he left, he actually responded to it in the comment section. So if you have something else to add, with your experience, especially being a lady and also now being Black.
Okay, so racism is everywhere, not just in the UK. If you've left home, this isn't home, you know, this isn't home. So it's there, but my own personal experience is, it's there, but I just, if it affects me, I will report it. But generally in everyday life, not so much. I live in the middle of nowhere. There's no Black person anywhere for miles and miles, and I haven't experienced it in my everyday life. Of course, it's there, but I don't think it should be a reason to keep you from coming here. If you just remember that this isn't, we are not from here. So it's the same way when Muzungus go to the village and the children chase them screaming, Muzungu, Muzungu, you know, it's a bit like that. So yes, racism is there. You just have to learn to deal with it. It doesn't really, there's institutionalized, you know, there are certain things that are a bit unfair, and you have to be cognizant to that the institutions, if you get into trouble, you can really get into trouble. But generally on a daily basis with your colleagues, no. But mostly it's institutional racism, sort of opportunities to go further, making complaints and things like that. You're always at a disadvantage. And we also suffer a lot of sort of micro aggressions.
Yeah.
You know, British racism is not in your face. So sometimes you don't even realize you leave a situation feeling uncomfortable and you can't put a finger on it. So it's not in your face. It's little microaggressions, and it's mostly my personal experience. It's institutional, and of course, I work in dementia, so yeah, the little old ladies are very they tell you things, you know. I've been called many things, but you know, I always tell myself why I'm here. I'm here to work. I'm here to better myself. So you know, you don't let those things get to you. But generally, on a daily basis, my general everyday life, not so much. It's more institutional and systemic and sort of microaggressions that you will learn to navigate if you live here. Yeah. I mean, it's not home. So
yeah, just to add on that, I think one of the things that I kind of have in the background is that you typically, when you're here, the system will accord you the benefit of you being here and you doing what you're supposed to do. What it will not do for you is it will not give you the benefit of doubt. If you have been reported and you are Black, rest assured that case will be investigated fully until you are exonerated or until you're punished. But the other way around, if you report something, you know, it would be something like, are you sure? You know, did it really happen? You know, maybe you misheard, you know, things like that. So what you always have to remember is go back to the GMC good medical practice. If you think there's something happening that you don't agree with, document it, report it, don't just sit and wait. If you think there's something that has to be done and it's not for you to do it, don't do it, but report it. So for everything, if you've seen a patient, document it, sign your name and date it. What was not written was not done. Okay, and that's why I thought it's very, very important to talk about the GMC code of ethics or the medical practice, is because that is the subtle difference. Because in the working in the district in Kenya, even if you're in surgery, if there's a lady that requires a CS and you're the person that can do a CS, you will jump in and do it. If you do that here, yes, you will do it. Yes, the patient might survive, but for the next 2 or 3 years, you'll be answering that single question.
All right, thank you, Omar. Just to add on what the two have said and what Dr. Francis wrote in the chat box, that they might have racism in the UK, but in Kenya, we equally have our own tribalism, chronism, and, you know, nepotism, especially now that many young doctors are experiencing, you know, having to bribe to get a job in this republic. So I guess different setups, different ways of experiencing discrimination. One last question, which came in late, but I think it's important to address. Maybe comments, 1 minute comment on how to raise a family in the UK. So if you're relocating with your family, how is it? What experience, you know, what would someone expect? 1 minute, kindly. Gadoni, then Moriti, and then Omar.
Okay, so I don't have kids, but I am married and my spouse is also a doctor. So we use the same pathway, and our only challenge is probably finding jobs in the same place, and who does training first, because, you know, it's a national recruitment thing. So if someone gets training somewhere, do we all move there, and who goes where? So that's our challenge, is where to go, who does what at what time, you know. For us, we are taking turns. So because there's no rush, you just take turns, and so, yeah, so that's my perspective.
Dr. Moriti?
I think Omar will be very well versed in that. We'll let him have the word on it.
Thank you. So the challenges of raising children in the UK are many. So number one, the reason that you position yourself in a certain location, geographic location, is mainly due to your job. So you'll think, I work there, so I'm going to live in this general area. But the problem is, what you'll not know is, how are the schools in that area? You know, how is that community in terms of raising your kids? I have lived in areas where, you know, you hear gunshots, you know, you see people on the streets having needles in their hands because they've taken, you know, drug overdose and things like that. So the challenges are many, and the culture is different. Where my daughter can come in at home and say, "Oh, Daddy, don't be silly," it's different when I'm here than when I'm in Kenya. If I'm in Kenya and my daughter comes in and says, "Daddy, don't be silly," that will be a beating kind of coming up in that minute. So the challenges are many. So as you come to the UK, don't be scared of the internet. I think that's one thing I keep telling people. Don't be scared of the internet. Before you go and look at where you're going to live, look at the general area, Google it, you know, crime rate in the area that you're going to live in, for example, school rating in the area that you live in, racism in the area that you live in, you know, burglaries, and all that is important when you're raising your kids. For me personally, my own experience is I moved from Nottingham, where I had so many friends. I came to a very small town in the UK so that I can work with the Navy, but my wife didn't like it. She completely did not like it. After a few months, she said, "You know what? I'm packing my bags. I'm going back to Kenya." And she did. You know, she went with the kids. I missed them for almost 18 months. Okay, so I had to think through my decision to come and do this job has affected them, because my wife, as a Muslim lady, she wears a hijab. She was the only person in the town wearing a hijab. So very, very difficult, walking kids to school and things like that, people staring at you for no apparent reason. So I had to make sure that before I bring them back, now they're back, I'm happy. That's why I have a smile on today. So they're back, but I had to make sure that for them to come back, I have created an environment that they can fit in comfortably without for example, like now I have to take the kids to school. I do it myself. I take them to school in the morning and I pick them up in the evening. I get in work late and I come out of work, go and pick them up from school, bring them home, and then go back to work because I don't work far from home. So it's things like that. You have to think really, really carefully. And the last thing I'm going to mention in this subject is, if you're a man, you're bringing your wife to the UK, remember, she will not have a job if she's not a doctor. She will not have it, that's guaranteed. And if you're a lady, if you're coming to the UK and you're bringing your husband, it's probably even worse because he will never have a job if they're not medical people. All other professions don't get jobs. Let's be very clear. Only medics get jobs. And I know of people whose spouses have changed career to become nurses so that they can have a job as well. Okay, so it's something very, very important to take into consideration when you're making that big decision to move. At the end of the day, I think the question from Linda was, does it pay off? It does. Eventually, it does. When you've learned the system, you've learned how to talk to people, how to deal with people, how to dissolve a racist situation, because it does happen. People come and say things. How to dissolve that situation, how to walk away, how to politely say, "You're not going to say that to me again." Things like that. For me, I'm a very tough person. I think probably the people who know me will attest to that. I don't take any of these rubbish things kindly. I will make the loudest noise, but that's me. Other people don't have that confidence. So just be wary. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Omar. I think that aspect on the social part was very insightful. As we close off, we would like to ask Machonda Chibanzi to say something with regard to the topic, which is basically trying to get doctors to immigrate to the UK. But as the speakers have said, it's not always rosy as we would imagine. A few thoughts about that. Being a union official, trying to fight for better conditions, and also having heard that we are the best paid doctors in Africa, some parts of South America, Asia, and we owe that to the union, but we still want more. Karibu Chibanzi.
Thank you very much. And first and foremost, sister, thank you for organizing this session. I've been following through and it's been quite an enlightening session. There's a lot of information that I think doctors in our country really need to get and to get a feel of what it is to work outside. I'm glad that I think of the speakers from the UK. I've had an opportunity to work under Dr. Francis Moriti, who moved on. That was when he was in his postgraduate as a resident. And then Dr. Omar is a very good friend who've been really talking about the whole issue of occupational medicine, especially in the era of COVID last year, and how we were going to try and make the whole occupational medicine issue in Kenya a subject that even doctors themselves will actually see it as a practice, because it's very important. The COVID situation really opened it up to us, and there's a number of legal channels in which we're trying to follow and to just try and influence the policy on compensation. He talked about WIBA, which is the Work Injury Benefits Act. Thanks, Dr. Kevin Moriti, who insisted, who said that doctors in Kenya are well paid. I mean, it's been a struggle to get doctors paid, and to hear that you're comparing that we're well paid compared to our counterparts, but of course that comes with its own further analysis in terms of the economic situations of the country, like you rightfully said about how you access your workplace, the working conditions, how does the system work in the UK vis-a-vis our country. We spend also a lot of the money trying to get to work and trying to survive in a country that doesn't really have social services that are well engineered like in the UK. And also to Dr. Gadoni for her insightful presentation. So basically, I think what we need moving forward, and for me, what I see as for the Kenyan doctors is that we are facing some serious challenges with regards to employment and training and career progression in our country. And rightfully so, from where I see it as KMPDU, we are actually trying, we have been trying to just brainstorm and see how is it that we can now open up the space for our young colleagues in the country to equally go and practice in countries like the UK. And I believe that then this becomes the space for collaboration between us, KMPDU, KMA, and the doctors in the UK. I actually took their email, and I think we can organize a forum where now we can have some form of engagement. We can even think about creating an agency through the union and through KMA that can then be the channel under which doctors can move to the UK in a way that, because we have the organizational power to say that as a country, we have this number of doctors who want to move out of the country. And in the UK, if the NHS is sourcing for doctors, then they can actually come to us as a one-stop shop where these doctors will then move and channel towards to the UK and be able to negotiate at that level. I think it's something that is very doable. We are in an election period. I think once we are done with the elections, these are the things that we should take up, because rightfully so right now we are really struggling internally with that internal politics. But once the politics are over and once we are rolling out moving forward, I personally believe that it's something that we should really work on. And I'm glad that Dr. Linda here is a convener of the WMA Young Doctors. So this basically means that it's something that is very doable. So we have Dr. Linda here, we have the Kenyan Doctors UK, we have KMA, we have KMPD. We can come, sit together, and also bring on board our young colleagues who are really who've organized themselves in what they call the Young Doctors Caucus, and just sit together and see how we can now make it a reality. Because I believe that it remains an idea until we implement it, and implementing it might not be easy, but it's something that we should actually commit ourselves to. Personally, that's something I'm really committed to, because at some point we cannot keep championing in our country and they don't see the value. We have to show them that we do actually have the value in our country, and there'll be appreciation in the other countries. It will also create employment opportunities and training opportunities for the doctors in this country out there. So essentially, I wouldn't want to say much more than that for those many words. I thank you for the presentations and for organizing this forum. And I look forward to moving this discussion to even a physical forum. I know we have the COVID situation, but we can actually organize a physical forum where we'll actually sit and even set up, if it's a committee, to try and see how we can make this a reality. Thank you very much.
Linda, you're on mute.
Okay, sorry, technology. So
Yeah.
Thank you, Chibanzi, for bringing up the idea of formalizing a way of linking the two countries, the two medical fraternities, and making it easier for doctors to get job opportunities abroad, and even for maybe other health professionals in the UK would want to come here for other reasons. That is a discussion we can organize. I'm sure Dr. Kigondu is listening, and Elizabeth, our CEO, is listening.
Linda, sorry, can I just add one thing? So we are in the process right now of formalizing the Kenyan Doctors UK into an organization that's recognized by GMC. So we are doing that now. In fact, well, I think I can speak on behalf of the rest of them because I'm part of the task force, given the mandate to do that. So we are doing that. And the main purpose would be for the doctors who are intending to come to the UK, are in the path of coming to the UK and have landed in the UK, to provide to them the support that some of us potentially never had when we started some of his journeys. So, watch this space.
All right, thank you. I think that is a good way of starting. I think also the doctors in the UK formed an organization similar to yours, which is called KEDU, Kenyan Doctors something Diaspora in the UK, which has official links with KMA. And I think it would be nice to now collaborate with all these, forums or associations. Yeah.
The US.
Yeah. So with that, I think we can ask Dr. Liz to close the meeting for us, give us a final remark. as we plan to end the meeting. Dr. Liz?
Thank you very much, Linda. I'm always very, very impressed with the Young Doctors Network. I think in 2018, when I was first given the Young Doctors Network, and it was this non-existent thing, and myself and Linda have been able to propel it to levels where we're actually making connections with doctors in the US, doctors in the UK. So today's presentation was actually very impressive, and I'm glad that, Linda, you continue to offer value to the young doctors in the association to know what is the value of joining KMA in terms of providing networking opportunities, in terms of providing the information and knowledge for them to be able to make career decisions as they grow in their careers. So thank you very much to Dr. Omar, Dr. Kevin, and also Dr. Francis Moriti for actually giving us a very wonderful presentation. I'm sure most of the young doctors have gained, and for those of us who have intentions of wanting to advance our careers at that level, for sure we'll be reaching out to ensure that we follow up with the discussions that are going on. That said, Karibuni Sana Kenya Medical Association, which is a national medical association of medical doctors, and we represent straight from the time you graduate as a doctor to a senior specialist, and we continue to urge you to participate in the various activities. Join Dr. Linda's Young Doctors Network, join various committees, and the list is available in our website, so you can see what you can join in to actually grow yourself professionally, and also offer you an opportunity to serve the health industry. So with that said, I think Linda, asante sana, let's continue these discussions. Thank you again, Mwachonda, for joining us from the union. Of course, the union has done a lot of work in terms of ensuring that we are promoting doctors' welfare in terms of labor relations, and I have had your promise to have a physical meeting, which you will fund. Tutakuja na tutakuja kwa wengi. Na I think that said, maybe because the union is here who's vying, maybe it's also to say that Dr. Mwachonda is vying for SG KMPDU, and we are glad that we have an opportunity, especially during this COVID pandemic, to work with him. And I for sure see a lot of interactions also as we move ahead. Asanteni sana.
Liz, would you like to advertise the KMF Scientific Conference?
Thank you, Linda. Thank you. No, Assistant CEO ndio huyo. Anyway, thank you. Also to inform you that as part of our activities within KMA, we have the KMA Annual Scientific Conference, which always happens from the 21st to the 24th of April. The third week of April, and this year is 21st to 24th of April, 2021. We are going to Linda's place. We are going to Kisii County, and we shall also be streaming live on Zoom. So all the details are available on our website. So we also have a Young Doctors Pre-Conference, and we shall be continuing this conversation on career progression and entrepreneurship. And the theme for the main conference is on technology and innovation. If you'd like to register for the conference, registration have already been opened on kma.co.ke. You can find the registration portal there. So you can register either to attend the full conference, or you can register to attend the pre-conference, which Linda is hosting. If you'd like to submit abstract, unfortunately, we close the abstract submission this Friday, but you're welcome to see the amazing abstracts that we have been able to get. You can come in and listen in. So if you have any questions, you can email ydn@kma.co.ke for any further information. Asante.
All right, thank you everyone. We are sorry for not keeping time, but I believe this time is not wasted. We have all benefited from the discussions, and all our panelists are actually available on social media, the LinkedIn of this world. And if you just Google search them, I'm sure you can find them if you don't have any other way of contacting them. But msiwasumbue sana kwa inbox, just maintain professionalism. Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Bye.
Bye. Linda, I'll give my email in the chat. You have my email. Yeah. So if anyone wants, they can take my email.